U.S. Middle East envoy meets with families of Israeli detainees in Tel Aviv. Iran and Pakistan aim to boost bilateral trade to $10 billion annually. And Ukraine's intelligence agencies strike a military-linked electronics factory in Russia. These were the headlines, the news in detail. Families of Israeli detainees held by Hamas staged a protest in Tel Aviv, urging a comprehensive deal to end the war and secure the captives' release. Protesters surrounded them with barbed wires in a symbolic and reflecting the plight of the detainees. They criticized the Israeli government's failure to free all captives and raised concerns over the detainees' reported hunger. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has met with families of Israeli detainees in Tel Aviv as truce talks and aid concerns intensify. Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy to the Middle East, visited Hostages Square in Tel Aviv to meet families of Israelis held in Gaza amid public pressure for their release. Earlier, he met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to push forward Gaza ceasefire efforts and discuss the worsening humanitarian crisis. His visit comes as global criticism mounts over Israel's offensive and restricted aid access, with famine warnings growing louder. Hamas has condemned Steve Witkoff's visit to Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid centers as a staged effort to whitewash Israeli occupation. Hamas accused the visit of providing political cover for Israel's deliberate starvation and systematic killing of children and civilians. Hamas labeled the U.S. as a full partner in the crimes of starvation and genocide in Gaza conducted openly before the world. They urged the U.S. to push for a ceasefire agreement to end aggression and ensure Israeli troops withdrawal from Gaza. Fatah has condemned Hamas for recent remarks against Egypt and Jordan, calling them divisive and harmful to the Palestinian cause. Fatah has rejected what it called hostile statements by Hamas towards Egypt and Jordan, saying they do not represent the Palestinian people. It praised both nations for decades of support and sheltering Palestinians, warning that such rhetoric fuels division and threatens Arab unity. Fatah also reaffirmed its appreciation for Egypt's leadership under President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and called on all Palestinian factions to end incitement and prioritize national unity. Jordan's army has carried out 7 airdrops, delivering 57 tons of aid to Gaza with support from several international partners. Jordan, alongside the United Arab Emirates, Germany, France, and Spain, has airdropped 57 tons of aid into Gaza, including food and infants' formula. The operation comes amid warning of famine and rising child deaths due to restricted access to humanitarian relief. Global Hunger Monitor recently reported worsening conditions across the territory, despite international outrage over an offensive that has killed more than 60,000 Palestinians Israel continues to reject mounting criticism. "11 trucks carrying vital medical aid have reached a WHO warehouse in Gaza as the enclave's health system nears collapse. A World Health Organization warehouse in Gaza has received 11 trucks loaded with essential medical supplies, according to logistics officer Ihab Hattab. WHO footage shows forklifts unloading aid amid widespread healthcare devastation. The UN has condemned Israeli strikes on hospitals, arrests of medics, and aid restrictions as of July on half of Gaza's hospitals, and a third of primary care centers were partially operational. Palestinians in Gaza are mourning 44 people killed while trying to access desperately needed humanitarian aid. Crowds gathered at Shifa Hospital in Gaza City after dozens were killed while waiting for aid. At least 23 people died near the Zakim crossing in the north as trucks entered with supplies. Another 11 were killed in Netzarim, central Gaza, under similar conditions. Israeli strikes claimed 7 more lives in Gaza City. Hospital officials confirmed that all victims were taken to Shifa, where mourning families continue to arrive. Crowds of Palestinians were seen walking back from the Zakim crossing carrying sacks of flour as hunger-related deaths continue to rise in Gaza. Footage from northern Gaza showed men carrying the wounded near an aid entry point and mourning loved ones at Hamad Hospital. Civilians described desperate scenes with aid retrieved from underbodies. Mounting global outrage over starving children and rising deaths has pushed Israel to ease restrictions, briefly halting fighting and airdropping food. But aid groups say the steps fall short, warning of a worsening famine. Despite a slight increase in aid trucks, most are not reaching UN warehouses for distribution. Gaza health authorities say over 60,400 Palestinians have been killed since the start of the Israeli attacks, with casualties continuing to rise. Health officials in Gaza report that Israeli military operations have now killed more than 60,400 people and injured over 148,700 since the war began. In the past 24 hours alone, 98 Palestinians were killed and 1,079 wounded amid ongoing bombardment. The figures reflect the growing humanitarian toll in the enclave as strikes continue across civilians' area. Allahu Akbar. Seven crossings once served as Gaza's lifeline to the outside world, yet most have remained closed or inactive for years, leaving the flow of people and goods dependent mainly on Rafah and a handful of limited gateways. Our report tells the story of these 7 crucial crossings.
The story of 7 crossings connecting Gaza to the outside world. Rafah Crossing, the only crossing that connects Gaza to Egypt. Located in southern part of the Strip, Its operations are governed by the 2005 Crossings Agreement. It is designated for individuals and goods. Israel permanently shut it down in May 2024. Beit Hanun Crossing, located in northern Gaza Strip under Israeli control. It is considered the only gateway for movement between Gaza and the West Bank. Israel has kept it almost permanently closed since Hamas took control of Gaza. Al-Muntar Crossing, located east of Gaza and under Israeli control. It used to be the largest commercial crossing for goods between Gaza and Israel. Exports have been completely halted for years, and it is now used for limited imports. Al-Auda Crossing, located east of Rafah, and is one of the smallest crossings, designated for imports only. Israel has kept it permanently closed for many years. Shuja'iyya Crossing, located east of Gaza and designated for the entry of fuel through specially equipped pipelines. Israel keeps it closed most of the time, exacerbating the energy crisis in the Strip. Kerem Abu Salim Crossing, located in southern Gaza at the meeting point of the Egyptian, Palestinian, and Israeli borders. It is designated for commercial exchange and has been used as an alternative to the Rafah crossing to bring in some aid, goods, and supplies. Al-Qarara Crossing, located east of Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah. It is used exclusively for Israeli military movements. Tanks and vehicles enter through it during incursions and large-scale military operations.
For more analysis, we now move to Salma Al-Fiqi in our newsroom.
Thank you, Mona. And for further analysis, we are joined from El Khalil by Fatah Movement spokesperson, Dr. Maher El Namoura. Welcome, sir, to Q News. Sir, can you share with us what are the core reasons behind Fatah's strong condemnation of Hamas's recent statements against Egypt and Jordan?
We are at Fatah, so we highly appreciate Egypt's role, along with the Hashemite Jordanian kingdom, in supporting the Palestinian people since 1948 Nakba up till today, and they are partners in blood and future. And also on the path of liberating Al-Quds, we are also denouncing any remarks against Egypt and Jordan in light of the harsh circumstances the Palestinian people are going through, in line with Egypt's management in delivering the humanitarian aid, as the occupation disrupting such aid from Egyptian side of Rafah, while thousands of flood trucks were piled up for months that are very ready or are ready to deliver the aid into Gaza that is suffering genocide and war against the Palestinian people. So such remarks are denounced, and unfortunately the Israeli occupation has agreed such a process by facilitating such a demonstration outside the Egyptian embassies. The Palestinian people, while voting for 149 to a project of a ceasefire against Gaza, and when to the UN Security Council was blocked by the American veto. We've never seen such demonstrators before or in front of Israelis or US embassies. But we are in Fatah's movement. We reaffirm that Egypt's been and will continue supporting the Palestinian people and supporting the Palestinian cause along with our brother Jordan.
Dr. Maher, what role do you think should the Palestinian factions play in promoting unity amid the internal political disagreements?
ما هو الدور؟
What role should the Palestinian factions play in promoting unity amid the internal political disagreements, sir?
Hear the questions very well.
Do you want me to say the question again? Okay.
The Palestinian unity for the Palestinian people, as requesting and calling upon all the Palestinian factions under the PLO as the sole legitimate representation of the Palestinian people, adopted by the international legitimacy, calling upon the establishment of the Palestinian state on the lines of the 4th of July 1967, unanimously. So as we request from all the parties within the liberation organization, and the Palestinian Authority should be returned to Gaza with full control, along with the West Bank, under a unified political umbrella represented by the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, and one law that regulate and govern all the parties, and the Palestinian Authority to be the sole reference for the Palestinian people as the most component income for providing all the necessary services for the Palestinian people.
And sir, how can Fatah's call to end the divisive rhetoric be realistically achieved, I mean, given the current political climate? How can Fatah's call to end the divisive rhetoric be realistically achieved, and given the current political climate at the moment?
There is a political disagreement since the coup in 2007, but we and the President Abu Mazen in reaching the Palestinian reconciliation to be in one single corner and boat to confront the Israeli occupation that announced the genocidal war against the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip through starvation and the bombardment, and in parallel war in the West Bank, particularly in the north, such as Jenin and Tulkarm, along devastation or displacing more than 60,000 Palestinians, and creating a new reality in the West Bank, in addition to lose the hands of the Israeli settlers to do some far-right gangs practices by storming the Palestinian countries, by stealing the chips from the Palestinian farmers, and establishing new settlements on the hills and mountains in a bid to impose a new reality that refrained in reaching the two-state solution that was one of the goals of the previous conventions and international conferences, supported by the EU, crowned by preparation of the recognition of France, Britain, Canada, and several other countries are ready to come on board in the recognition of the Palestinian statehood in the upcoming September. It's a breakthrough that we highly appreciate, expressed by President Abu Mazen, extending his recognition and appreciation, but there is a call of the supported occupation forces, on top of which the United States, to come on board in recognition of the Palestinian people and to halt the support financially, militarily for the occupation forces in a bid to seize the killing against the Palestinian people as the only partner that is able to end the war as they did in the Israeli-Iranian war within 12 days. We wish from President Trump to be recorded in the history by forcing Netanyahu and halted the killing and the starvation in the Gaza Strip along with the West Bank.
Dr. Meher, how might this dispute, you think, between Fatah and Hamas affect the diplomatic efforts involving Egypt and Jordan?
Republic of Egypt and Jordan have relentlessly great effort in reaching a real genuine Palestinian reconciliation, but the priority is the cessation of aggression and the foil the far-right Jewish schemes in the Israeli coalition as making Netanyahu the submitted to Smotrich and Ben Gvir's schemes by threatening to withdraw from the coalition to topple down Netanyahu. So Netanyahu would face the trials due to the
And that was Dr. Meher El-Namoura from El Khalil, Fatah Movement spokesperson. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News today. And now we go back to Mona Mselhi in our studio. Mona.
Thank you so much, Salma, for the analysis. And now for the latest developments in Iran.
We're trying to make a deal so that there's no destruction and death.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has arrived in Lahore, warmly welcomed by Punjab's chief minister and officials. During his two-day visit, he will meet senior Pakistani leaders, sign cooperation agreements. This marks the fifth official Iran-Pakistan meeting within a year, focusing on strengthening economic, trade, regional security, and political ties. Discussions will also cover regional developments, Gaza situation, Israeli aggression against Iran, and preparations for the upcoming Joint Economic Commission meeting in Tehran. Meanwhile, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has praised the strong historic ties between Tehran and Islamabad, aiming to boost bilateral trade to $10 billion annually. He emphasized the expanding border trade via land, air, and sea, linking Iran to the Silk Road and Europe through Pakistan. Highlighting Pakistan's condemnation of recent Israeli and U.S. aggression against Iran, Pezeshkian stressed regional security, cooperation, and unity against divisive forces. His two-day trip includes cultural visits and high-level meetings with Pakistani leaders to strengthen economic security and political relations. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has emphasized that Pakistan's support against Israeli and American attacks strengthens bilateral ties between the two nations. He highlighted a deep strategic alignment between Iran and Pakistan, underscoring their close cooperation and shared interests in confronting regional challenges together. And moving on, the Israeli occupation military has intercepted a missile launched from Yemen targeting Israel, triggered sirens nationwide, including Jerusalem. The Houthis, expressing solidarity with Palestinians amid the Gaza conflict, have fired multiple missiles and drones at Israel and shipping routes. Most of these attacks were successfully intercepted or failed to reach the targets. In response, Israel has conducted a series of retaliatory strikes against the Houthis, maintaining its defense against them. Egyptians in Australia have voted at the embassy in Canberra and consulates in Sydney and Melbourne during the final day of overseas Senate elections. The National Election Authority stated that polling ran from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. local time. Egypt's Foreign Ministry highlighted smooth voting worldwide, with 136 polling stations in 117 countries for expatriates. Voting also continued in major cities including Houston, Chicago, Washington, New York, Los Angeles, Ottawa, and Buenos Aires, with embassies working non-stop to ensure efficiency. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has emphasized the Senate elections as a vital constitutional obligation and urged all citizens, including expatriates, to participate. Abdulati highlighted the Senate's critical role alongside the House of Representatives. He described Egyptian-American relations as strategic and praised U.S. President Donald Trump's peaceful conflict resolution efforts, rejecting military solutions. He discussed bilateral and regional issues with U.S. officials, addressed Israel's policies in Palestine, underscored Gaza's dire humanitarian crisis, and noted Egypt's respected role and intensive diplomatic efforts to promote the two-state solution. Ukraine's intelligence agency says it struck a military-linked electronic factory in Pinza. Russia has verified video shows smoke rising after a drone sighting. A drone was seen flying over Pinza, Russian, moments before an explosion and rising smoke. A video footage has showed the aftermath of what Ukraine's SBU says was a strike on a military electronic facility. Ukraine's unmanned systems forces also claimed attacks on Russian oil sites and a drone airfield. The USF, which specializes in long-range drone warfare, did not reveal strike methods. Russia has not issued an official response. Ukraine and Russia report intense battles in Donetsk as Moscow claims gains near Pokrovsk, denied by Kiev. Heavy fighting has been reported around Kasov Yar and Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine. Russia claims to have seized Kasov Yar and advanced towards Pokrovsk, also known as Krasnomark-Misk. Ukraine denies the claim, saying it replied over 40 attacks in the area. Kiev also reported Russian shelling of Pokrovsk city center and nearby settlements. The strategic town, once home to 61,000 people, is a major logistic hub for Ukrainian forces. Russia has yet to respond to Ukraine's denial. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we've been covering. U.S. Middle East envoy meets with families of Israeli detainees in Tel Aviv. Iran and Pakistan aim to boost bilateral trade to $10 billion annually. And Ukraine's intelligence agencies strike a military-linked electronic factory in Russia. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews. Stay informed. Many thanks for watching and good night.